Yes, there is another story by Henry, which is loaves. Miss Martha Mitchum had a small bakery. She was neither very rich nor very poor. She had $2,000 in the bank. Miss Martha was 40 years old. She had a kind heart, and only 2 of her teeth were false. Although she was still unmarried, she hoped to get married sometime. 2 or 3 times a week, a customer came in to buy some bread. He was a middle-aged man with a beard, and he wore glasses. Soon Miss Martha began to take an interest in him. He spoke English with a strong German accent. His clothes were old but clean, and he had good manners. He always bought 2 loaves of stale bread. Fresh bread was 5 cents a loaf. Stale bread was 2 loaves for 5 cents. The customer never bought fresh bread. Once Miss Martha saw red and brown stains on his hands. She was sure that he was an artist and very poor. She was sure he lived in a cold room where he painted his pictures. He ate stale bread and thought of good things that were sold in Miss Martha's bakery. When she sat down to dinner or had tea and jam, she used to think of the poor artist with good manners and feel sorry for him. She wanted to share all the good things she had with a well-mannered man. I have told you already that Miss Martha had a kind heart. One day, she brought from her room a picture that she had bought many years ago. With its help, she hoped to find out whether the man was really an artist. It was a Venetian scene. There was a beautiful palace in the picture, gondolas, young ladies, the moon, and the stars. She hung the picture on the wall of her bakery so the artist could notice it. 2 days passed. The customer came in for bread. 2 loaves of stale bread, please. You have here a fine picture, madam, he said, taking the bread from her. Miss Martha was very happy to hear these words. Do you think it's a good picture? She said. Well, he said, the palace is not so good. The perspective is not true. Good morning, madam. He took his bread and left. Yes, he must be an artist. Miss Martha was sure of it now. She took the picture back to her room. How kindly his eyes shone behind his glasses. How clever he was. He saw the perspective at once, and he has to eat stale bread only. But artists often have to struggle before they become famous. How she wanted to be of some help to him. She wanted to keep house for him, to share with him all the good things she had in her bakery. She was even ready to share her $2,000 with him. Time went on. Sometimes he talked to her for a few minutes. He bought only stale bread as before. He never bought a cake or a loaf of fresh bread. She thought he began to look thinner. It was clear to her he didn't eat enough. He was starving. How she wished to add something good to his stale bread he ate. But she knew poor artists were proud, and she was afraid to make him angry. Miss Martha began to wear her new dress in the bakery. She also bought some cold cream in order to make her face a little more beautiful. One day, the customer came in as usual and asked for stale loaves. While Miss Martha was getting them from the shelf, the siren of fire engine was heard. The customer ran to the door to look. Suddenly, a bright idea came to Miss Martha. On one of the shelves, there was a pound of butter she had bought in the morning. With her bread knife, Miss Martha made a deep cut in each of the stale loaves. Then she quickly put a big piece of butter into each cut and pressed the loaves together again. When the customer turned from the door, she was wrapping the loaves in paper. As usual, he said a few pleasant words to her and left. After he had gone, Miss Martha smiled to herself, but she was not sure. Had she the right to do such a thing? Who knows? Artists have their pride. Will he be angry with her? Still, the more she thought of it, the more she was sure that the customer would not be angry. For a long time she thought about him. Now he comes home, he sits down to his dinner of stale bread and water. Now he cuts until Miss Martha blushed. Will he think of a hand that put the butter in the bread? Will he thank her in his heart? Suddenly, the front door bell rang loudly. Somebody was coming and making a lot of noise. Miss Martha hurried to the door. Two men were there. One was a young man smoking a pipe. She had never seen him before. The other was her artist. His face was very red. His hat was on the back of his head. His eyes looked at her angrily. He raised his fists and shook them in Miss Martha's face. In Miss Martha's face. "Dummkopf," he shouted very loudly and angrily, then "$1,000" or something like that in German. The young man tried to pull him away. "I will not go," the artist shouted. "I want to tell you everything." "You have spoiled everything," he cried. "I want to tell you spoiled everything. You were a meddlesome old cat." Miss Martha was silent. She could not say a word. She put her hand on her heart. The young man took the artist by the arm. "Let's go," he said. "You have said too much." He dragged the angry artist out into the street. Then he came back to the bakery. "I want to explain everything," he said. "That man's name is Blomberger. He is an architectural draftsman. I work in the same office with him. It took him 3 months to draw a plan for a new building. It was for a prize competition. That's why he worked so hard at it. He finished inking the lines yesterday. You know, a draftsman usually makes his drawing in pencil first. After that, he inks the line. When it's done, he rubs out the pencil lines with stale bread. It is better than India rubber. Blomberger has always bought stale bread here. Today, he tried to rub out the pencil lines of his plan with the bread he bought in your bakery. Well, you know, that butter is not good for paper. You must understand that his plan can now be used only as a pepper for sandwiches." Miss Martha went into her room. She took off her new dress. She put on the old brown one she used to wear, and then she threw the cold cream out of the window.